Okay, I see recording. I think we're recording. So
All right.
for context, this is for my master's course, and we're doing some trainings that we need to record and send out. So for those watching for my master's class, this is Wayne Guidey. He is my director of technology. And what I've come to learn is I have the C&I end and Wayne has the technology end, but I would say most of what we do during the year is coupled and we have to do a lot of it together. And so we're not independent departments, but I think most of the time what we do overlaps with each other. So he is my very best good friend at work right now. We're actually in a district office also, so we're just across the way from each other, kind of locked in our own areas. But when we do trainings, we normally just set up our computers. We kind of work on what we need to work on together at round tables and in the same room and same space. So this is a little bit different for us, but I think it will still accomplish what we need. So thank you, Wayne. You're the best.
You're welcome.
All right, so today I'm working on some elements in my professional development plan. One of my goals was technology integration and looking at how do teachers take technology tools and not use them as standalones or just plug kids in to do work, but how do they then make the shift where it's incorporated into content of teaching and they're actually teaching differently because of the tools that they have, which is a huge hurdle to clear, I think. And Wayne, you can chime in. I think we have a lot of staff who just uses the tools part, but they haven't changed any of their teaching so far.
Correct.
And I think that's our ultimate goal is how can we mix it up? So one program, I'm going to share my screen now and show you, I made a little slideshow. And tell me when and if you can see it.
Gotcha.
Woohoo. Oh, okay, there we go. So I'm just going to present here. One program that we run for our district is iReady, and the goal was to provide some intervention for our students in areas of math. I think the whole time Wayne and I have been here, which has been 3 years going on 4, we hadn't had a program that filled gaps in for students. And the idea of adaptive technology was new for us. So I'm going to share some objectives of what we're covering about why Wayne would get pulled into that iReady world. I wonder if I can, oh, I can totally advance. Okay, this is fun. So really quickly today, what we're going to go through is talking about cross-training and then just that review of what is iReady. And then I wanted to walk Wayne through the back-end setup and the reports part. And then finally, the most important part is that tech integration into content. So cross-training was something that was brought up by our superintendent as something that would be needed. And that would be where I would learn parts of Wayne's job in case something happened to him that would be really important for us to know, and then he would learn parts of our job. So I thought programs was a really perfect place to start because if I had to walk away, I think it naturally, my position would go right to Wayne. My duties and my jobs and all the things that involve the technology would end up on his plate. So I think it offers more program support, and when teachers have questions, I think it gives them 2 people that they could go to. And then right now we're only using iReady for math. And if we add in the language arts part, I think it's going to add to the scope of what the program is, but we're also looking at adding staff. So it's going to be a heavy load to carry, to manage. And then I just have a belief, and you can tell me if I'm way off base here, Wayno, but if we have teachers who aren't comfortable with programs, just push them aside. And they tend not to use them.
That is 100% correct.
So kind of pull them in the fold, and the more comfortable they are, I think the more we can get them to use them. And iReady is one of those critical components that that we need kids on, we need kids using, and we need teachers comfortable with it. So, okay, so what is iReady? So this might be the new part for you because we talk about it a lot, but I don't know if you've had in-depth work with what iReady is. So the program that we bought is an adaptive program for kids. So let me back up a little bit. Students will start by logging into the program, and each student takes a diagnostic test, which is pretty in-depth, and for some of our little kids, it takes a couple days to complete. And out of those diagnostic results, iReady formulates a program that matches where that kiddo's at and then moves them through lessons and levels that's independent just for them. So my score would be different than your score, and your score would be different than Denny's score. And we would have different tasks that we're working on depending on where our gaps are. And so one of the main goals was that we were filling gaps. It tends to be pretty kid-friendly. You can see the little monsters on the screen. I think the primary likes it. We used it all the way up through 8th grade. And even though it had some cartoony shapes and objects that they were looking at, it seemed a little more appropriate for junior high. So I don't feel like our kids are tired or burnt out on it yet, and we can still capture them. But as they're working on their lessons, the computer will adapt to what types of answers they're inputting. So if they don't pass or complete a lesson or a concept, it will send an alert to the teacher that says, hey, before we move on, we need to go back and really review this because that kiddo didn't get that concept. So there's a connection between what the kids are doing and what the teacher's seeing on her end also. We're able to track growth based on how many lessons students are completing, and then we repeat that diagnostic a few times throughout the year. So you can see in 3 months how much has that student grown, and we try to compare it to grade level. So you might have started at a 2nd grade first month, so 2.1, and in 3 months you already made it to 3rd grade level, so you're 3.0. That's big growth in 3 months. So those are things that we're looking for. So I think.
And Lisa, the teachers can print reports out on this?
Can, and that's what I think it's going to be the area I think you and I are going to be most involved in. Like launching it's really easy, and what I like is that it's a really user-friendly program. Like you're going to go in and take a look and pick up on how to set up the back end part really, really fast. And we're not going to spend a lot of time there, but I thought we'd dig around in reports a little bit because I feel like that's where teachers get the most lost or confused along the way. And if they don't pull the data, we can't ever get to the place where it drives instruction. So if we go live and we actually get into the program, I'm going to see if I can get out of, I'm just going to switch a little bit. Wayne, you got your password. Did it let you in?
Yes.
Okay. So when iReady set us up, they set you up as an admin already, and I didn't realize that because I can't give admin access, but they can. So it's just you and I. This is what my main screen looks like. And then the neat part is this is the kids' screen also. So this is what they see. Where some of our little guys get lost is over here, there's a monster with the login. And when you click on him, in fact, I'll just do it. They have verbal and audio cues to walk them through. So they're not typing in long emails or information. So we print little cards for them that has all this information on it. And I would say even kindergarten becomes really quickly adept at logging in on their own. And they don't need my help after like the first time. The rest of the students in 2 through 8, this is what their page looks like. And mine's already set up for my login. And I just save it. And then on your side, while we're going through this, if you're logged in, if you want to share your screen at any point, tell me.
Okay.
But here's really kind of the management piece of the program. And the part that I focus on are these 4 headings at the top: the management, the assess and teach, the reports, and then very rarely do I get into the help. And out of these, I would say the management and the reports are the 2 that I live in the most. So if I start with management, this is kind of building our classes. If anything were to happen to me and you would have to go through and build classes, or if there was a shift in responsibilities, it's really user-friendly. So I'm looking at rosters, and I could look at students or staff or classes. And when I head into students to manage them, it has our whole district list of all the kids that are enrolled there. When I head over to staff, it includes, I'll just click on staff so you can kind of see the back end. It has all of the staff that we've preloaded, and it's really easy to add staff in and take them out. So each year we could manage our list pretty simply. And then up here, there's a little button that says actions. And underneath this, on the staff side, I can add a staff member. And you and I have permissions to do that where other people don't.
Okay.
So I'll go through and clean this up with some of our teachers who aren't here anymore. And then when we get our new ones, we can add them in together. And then I can just back right back out. I can look at my management again. Classes I've set up for teachers. This is something they can't do. So for every teacher, I've had to set up their class. And then ultimately I'm connecting when I load a new kid. It'll ask me which class I want to put them in, and it drops them right in, and there's nothing the teacher has to do on their end. It's actually one of the quickest programs to load them. Does it look familiar? Does it look comfortable?
Yes.
Okay.
And so on the, how would you get like a student card?
Okay. So if I go down to classes, it's only our K and 1 who have student cards. So I'll take Erickson, for example. If I expand her class, it gives me all the information about her class that we've already built. And right down here at the bottom, they have these little K1 cards. So if I click on that, it gives me these pre-colored and pre-printed cards for each kid. So we print these out and then cut them and laminate them and keep them in the makerspace
Oh, cool. All
for the
right.
kiddos to use. They never memorize it, but they're really fast. So you saw the first question was class number with that little monster who popped up.
Yeah.
So then Addison would enter 861619, and she gets pretty fast with that, and they all have the same class number. Then it asks her to find her name. So she finds Addison with the little dinosaur next to it, or was that a bird or a pterodactyl? And then it asks for her code, and instead of putting in a code, she types in the moon, the heart, the star.
Oh, cool.
So a little bit different. If you scroll down, you can see all of the kids here. So if you have teachers who say, oh my gosh, I can't remember my kiddo's password for that K1, we could print them for them here.
Okay.
Let's see if I can get out of that. And then everything else, I don't know, it just seems really user-friendly for some of the other programs we've had to set up.
No, it looks straightforward.
And I know you've done this like a million times before, so I didn't want to belabor that too much. If I look at my headings again, so under management, we're adding students, we're adding staff, and we're adding classes. That one's pretty simple. The settings for each year, I'm going to go through and set windows of time for assessments and just set some parameters for when kids can do their lessons. Some schools have them shut down, so kind of like how we set up those settings with GoGuardian. If I don't want them working on iReady past school hours, I only want them to do it here, I can put a time limit on that. So some of those can be done in some of the management part of when their lessons take place. Some kids I can lock out and tell them you can't do this right now until you talk to your teacher, or you can't do a diagnostic right now. So all of those are kind of live in here. And usually we set it up once for the whole year and we're totally done. We don't live in this world very much. So that's the management component. Assess and teach is really the whole teacher backend of, but you and I have access to see it. So if I'm a teacher and my kid is struggling on a lesson and it keeps sending me alerts, and it's gonna lock that kid out until they manage to pass that lesson. This is where the teacher's going to go find tools for, okay, if I'm having a hard time sequencing numbers in kindergarten, there are tools here in the teacher toolbox and in tools for instruction that teachers have been taught how to get into, and they can pull lessons that they then practice with their kids. Then they can try the lesson again and see if it moves them on or not. So this really is a teacher world to live in, and you can get lost in here because there's so many layers to what's in here. So I don't live in here a lot. The part I wanted you to play around with today was the reports side. And this probably is why the training becomes so important, because at the beginning I had talked about the reason for doing this in my program is to really look at technology integration. And here's kind of the meat of what drives that. So teachers could get away with the whole year of just plugging their kids in for minimum minutes and then kind of walk away. And I think that's what we don't want them to do. Even if a kid's been locked out of a level, it'll move them on to a different strand where maybe they're more successful, but it never stops their progress. So unless a teacher is actively involved with student reporting, it's really easy to say, yeah, we got our minutes in, but they didn't maximize the time, and kids are just plugged into a screen. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. And do you remember some of the PD that we did this year with teachers, that we ran a lot of it in-house on our own?
Yep.
We talked about how can we structure small groups and set up different technology resources. So you could be working with your kids who all have a common issue in iReady or a common strand that they're struggling on. You can pull them and work one-on-one while your other kids are engaged in different activities, so you don't lose that time. And then you can keep rotating through your kiddos. So where I think we get stuck the most is teachers aren't quite sure how to run reports. And this is the part that Denny had talked to us about, wanting to put more of this in teachers' hands. They have to learn how to do it themselves. But the reality is they're still struggling. And I think we're going to have to show them a little bit more of what to do. But that means that you and I have to know it also. And that becomes a hard process until you get in and play around. So under reports, I have 4 headings under reports that I can click on. A lot of times I'm in class or student, and very rarely do I look at the whole school at one time. And most of the time I look at class at one time. So I'm going to start here. And then once I've narrowed it down to class, on the left-hand side, I can look at diagnostic results, instructional results, or how they've done for the whole year. Where we normally live is in diagnostic. And then over here, I have all these different options of things that I can choose. The one that I tend to pull the most is diagnostic results, and we're going to look at a whole class. So I don't know on your end if you want to follow, like if you want to click through some things that are different classes maybe to get different results, or if you want to follow my class, or if you don't want to follow at all and you just want to watch.
Oh, no, I'm going to follow you, but I think only you have mouse control on your
Got it.
end.
Okay, so if you do it on yours, you're just looking at my screen, what we're sharing, but it would make it really small, right? And then
Yes.
you'd have to, okay. So that might be too hard to follow. Okay, which teacher do you want to look at?
Let's do Blue.
Okay. So she's a kinder. So when Baloo gave her diagnostic results, I'll show you why she's a little bit different. So I selected the diagnostic that I wanted to look at. That's not a good one. Let's go to most recent. We'll start with an overview for her. So Kat tested all of her kids, and you get a really quick snapshot of where your babies are at if you're a teacher. When she tested her kindergartners, she actually had quite a strong result first. Green means her kids are on grade level or they're above grade level. Most teachers don't come in with that big of a piece of the pie that's green. And yellow means that they're at least 1 grade level below, and then 1 kid moved before they were able to finish. So because they're kindergarten, they don't have any red, because you can't be more than 2 grade levels behind in kinder. I mean, Kat can do a really quick snapshot of her kiddos and how her classroom looks. If she moves to the right, she can start to narrow it down by domain. Her kids are rocking geometry. Most of them are on grade level or above. And then I'd say about half of them, a little more than half, have met these other strands that she focuses on in kindergarten. So that's your quick snapshot. You want to see green. The more green you can see, the better. And you want to get rid of all the reds. So then Kat can scroll down, and her kids have been placed by the program from the highest scores to the lowest scores. So she can start to group kids also. So the kids at the top, in all 4 strands that they test in, these 3 were above grade level in all 4 strands. Samuel did really well, but he was a little bit behind in numeric operations. And so I might group maybe these kids together for small group work. And then these guys down here start to have a little bit below grade level scores, so they might group together. And she doesn't have any reds, but you can see Jonathan here probably needs to be in a group that gets more intensive instruction. So this data part's important for them to see so they can see how to group their kiddos. I'm going to show you a different teacher. So if I scroll back up to the top, I can go to Clifton. And from Kelly, I'm going to go to her first diagnostic. You can see she may, and I just changed the window of time by the drop down here. So we did this at the beginning of the year, and most of her kids came in below grade level. She had just a handful of greens. She had 3 kiddos who were at or above, and she did have at least 1 who was pretty far behind, 2 or more grade levels. If I change this though, look at what she did during the school year. This is worth celebrating. So her second diagnostic, you see how much it changes.
Wow, wow, wow.
So that's what we were celebrating Kelly with at board meetings, and she was kind of one of our rock star teachers. Of almost all of her kids are on grade level, and no more reds. She doesn't have any that are 2 or more behind. So if Kelly wanted to run a report for a kiddo, she can come down here to Owen's name. She can click on Owen, and this is where I think teachers struggle a little bit, is getting to this page, even though it seems pretty simple, and to print a batch for all of their kids. So this would be what we would share with parents and what teachers would use to help guide their instruction for Owen. Owen not only started in the green, so green is on grade level, he started his first diagnostic on grade level, and then on top of that, he grew another 30 points just in, and we only tested for like half a year. We never got to the 3rd diagnostic. So it shows also even the high kids Kelly's pulling up, not just the low ones who have a lot of room for growth. So this is the part that could take a while to go in and find these kids and print these reports for them, because they haven't quite narrowed down how to print big batch reports. So, okay.
Wow.
Overwhelming yet? Are you okay?
No, that's good information.
Okay. The last part for today. So batch is something new that they've added since you and I put iReady in place. So I want to explore that a little bit. I think the way that I learned most in iReady was just to play around with it. Like a teacher would ask, here's the type of report that I need. And I would just jump in and play around with it until it became second nature. Like, okay, that's under student diagnostic or student historical. What takes the longest, where I'm going to need your help, is figuring out how can we print, if I'm Clifton and I want a page for each kid to go home with report cards, how can I print that without going to every single kid along the way? So if this were something we were doing with like when we did it with all the teachers, I gave them like 10 minutes at this point just to go around and play with reports with their grade level partner so that they could see all of the results that they could pull up. The problem was it was super overwhelming because there's a lot. You have 4 headings here and 4 on the side, and then 4 to choose from within that. The combinations can be really complicated. So I was thinking this year about maybe doing a quick sheet for teachers to share, like, if this is the report that you want, here are the 4 links that you need to go to, or the 4 headings that you're going to click on. Because, and I think we know teachers by name who were struggling with this, and even by the end of the year, they didn't get there.
So they have access to all this stuff, right?
Yeah. Their teacher page looks just a little bit different. Like, they don't have some of the features that we have for admin. But for the most part, they have every option that we have, and it's laid out the same.
Interesting.
So just a lot of digging around and exploring to figure out all the different combinations of reports that you can print. So that's kind of the last piece to cover in those objectives was, I think this year for professional development, if we have a normal year and if we're back normal, because otherwise our priorities are going to be skewed a little bit. I just want to keep working with teachers to show them how to use the data that we have here and how you and I can be running reports for them or sample reports, and then keeping that conversation going about, okay, well, all the rest of the class is plugged into iReady and they're doing some of their lessons. How are you doing pull out with the kids who need your attention? Or how are you using the results that you see to drive whole class instruction so that you're not missing these great opportunities? You have all this data at your fingertips. So what are you doing to impact your teaching now that you have all of this information?
And then do you do any check-ins with them on the stuff too?
Yes, but I feel like this is where we kind of fell apart when we had to close school.
Gotcha.
We printed to start with the first year around, and this was our first year, and it wasn't even a complete year, so I feel like we've been kind of shortchanged a little bit. But we would print batches, like a cover sheet for the teacher, and then their individual kids' scores, delivered them to the teachers to review and look at, and then had that planning meeting with the principal, myself, and the teacher, just talking about, okay, what do you see here and how does this change your teaching? So I think for the first time we started to see wheels churn a little bit with like, oh, yeah, we have a big hole here. Maybe I could address that as a whole group.
Yep.
Even some of our hardest 8th grade math teachers were like totally on board to look at results and see how their kids were doing.
That's awesome.
Oh. I think we're going to get a little overwhelmed when we add in language arts too. So on top of all this, these are just all of the
Math.
blocks they can choose from. Look at, they're all math. Yeah. So now when you start to add in all the language arts options, that'll be another row at the bottom. I think I'm going to lean on you for some support on how can we expedite getting data to them, and then how can you and I get together and train them to run their own reports, because I can't do what we did this year, and you
No.
can't either.
And I was kind of looking through the batch options too, so there's some good options for us to get that done.
Okay, awesome.
I think
Okay.
you can go in there and, like, if you click in the batch, I think you could go in and print out your whole class, and
Okay.
so yeah,
Okay.
we'll make it work.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quick. So does that take us back to just you and I?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So then I think the what's next is really important for, I think we know a few things. Getting in and just putting your hands in the program, you're going to pick up on it really fast. We can do it together also. Running reports, I think if we have a normal PD year and we can put some of those events together, maybe you could help me present those to teachers of quick and easy snapshots, and we can build them in maybe to the website that we're building for training resources.
Yep.
And then just the follow through of where are they stuck and where do they need help.
We could also create some YouTube videos if we wanted and just put them in that teacher center.
Okay, I love that. Because obviously I'm now a Zoom recording expert.
Yes.
And then I was thinking maybe you and I can go back and revisit the ticket system later also. So when a teacher's stuck and they're submitting a ticket, it's going to go to technology first. Just the way that you and I handle that and divide that out, I think we'll have 2 eyes on it that we can knock out pretty quickly.
Okay, and we could even have them add another iReady section to that if you want.
Ooh, so their tickets
You know
would
what I
just
mean?
be,
They would say, yeah, they would do the drop down and select iReady,
okay, awesome.
and then we would know what that pertains to, that ticket.
Okay. I'm hoping that there's a good blend between the work we did last year of here are all the options that you have for intervention for your students. And now iReady provides the data and the holes, and we could merge those together and then use some of the technology. Like we'll take Vargas, for example. I think she's got a really good handle on, she takes a small group of kids, but she's used some different tools to flip her classroom. So her kids go and listen to her giving an instruction while she's working with a small group of kids. And then these guys over here are working on their essay outline. And then she rotates through. So then the next group moves over. They're working on instructions. She pulls another group with her to work one-on-one. And then that group's working on their essay outline. And then she rotates again. And I think that's the flow I'd like to get into that most teachers are kind of in right now, but they're still a little shaky. So on the tech end, I think it's what tools would serve teachers best to help navigate that, because there's so many.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming. Okay, that's a lot of me talking at you.
No, that's good. You did good.
Is that overwhelming, or is that an okay place for today?
It was perfect.
Okay. Of course, and thank you.
Yes. No, it was good.
Okay. Okay. And I know normally we would just sit down together and hammer this out together and say, okay, let's load a class for an example. But the timing of where we're at and not being able to work in the same room, we don't have class lists yet. It's a little funky. So I'm hoping it just laid the foundation for the work that we have to do.
No, yeah, it looked pretty straightforward. So
Okay.
I think I'll be able to give you a hand.
Sweet. Okay. Okay. Then for my class, that is the tech training piece. You and I will work on the follow-up and what happens next. We'll keep working on that, but I think this kind of met the intention of what today was.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the overview of this.
You're
It's
the best.
awesome.
Okay. I'm going to hit stop recording, and then it should give me an option to save or chronicle that somewhere, right?
Yes. And I think the recording on my side is blinking.
Okay. So I'm going to hit